This podcast is a production of Unfiltered Studios. If you would like to know more about joining Unfiltered Studios, please visit our website at unfpod.com for more information.
And now, here's a word from our sponsor.
Spartacus Coffee is made for and made by hustlers, entrepreneurs, peak athletes, self-starters, and free thinkers. Our community of coffee drinkers believe in lifting each other up to be the best version of ourselves we can be. On top of that, every sale goes to the nonprofit organization No Kid Hungry, a national effort to end childhood hunger in America. To learn more about that and order some of the best, richest coffee you can find at an affordable price, go to spartacuscoffee.com and be sure to use my promo code. It's pretty simple. It's Jay Burke, which is JAYBURKE, and get 10% off your first order. Remember, Spartacus Coffee. We fuel the grind, we fuel the success, we fuel champions. We are Spartacus.
And now back to your regularly scheduled program.
Keb Pound is not just your average comedian. He's the mastermind behind the Stupid History Minute, a podcast that brilliantly combines humor and history into bite-sized episodes. Imagine mixing the playful satire of a late-night comedy show with the meticulous curiosity of a history buff, and then you'll get Keb's unique approach. Now, before I go any further, I decided to split this conversation into 2 episodes because, frankly, we covered a lot of ground, and it just naturally divided into 2 engaging parts. And as I was editing it, I really picked up something there. I think what you'll find in the middle of this fun and sometimes silly conversation, I mean, Keb is a comedian, and he definitely had me in stitches a bit, so naturally you're going to have that. But when I really listen back to it, I think you'll find what I did, which there's a focus on the importance of taking a chance on yourself, whether it be in podcasting or comedy or your career. So what I'm trying to say is whether you're here for the laughs, the learning, or maybe just a little bit of both, we've got a little something for everyone, even those Star Wars fans. You guys are ridiculous. So my suggestion is sit back, relax, and get ready for a roller coaster ride through the mind of Keb Pound in an episode I'm calling Comedy, Conspiracists, and Keb, a dive into the unfiltered mind behind the Stupid History Minute. It won't always be a straight line.
It won't always be a straight line.
It won't always be a straight line.
But take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey.
And escape a while for thoughtful excursions
into the world of ideas across media,
politics, technology,
pop culture,
and all realms of civic life. Take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey.
Take the journey. Take the journey.
Take the journey.
You're listening to The With Jay Burke Show. Hello and welcome to The With Jay Burke Show. My name is Jason Burke, and though I'm technically the host of this podcast, it's the guests who truly take top billing. This is a place for curious minds who enjoy civil and sometimes meandering conversation. If you appreciate a few laughs and want to come away with new knowledge about subjects that aren't always easy to break down, then you're the person I want listening to this podcast. Today, we're thrilled to introduce Keb Pound, a versatile comedian, author, and podcast host from Jacksonville, Florida. Keb is known for his popular podcast, The Stupid History Minute, where he combines humor with education to present unique historical insights in just a minute. Keb is also the author of Stupid History Book, Volume 1, a book that delves into the surprising and often hilarious origins of everyday items, from accidental inventions to quirky backstories. The book is available at Barnes & Noble, Amazon, or as a Kindle download from the Unfiltered Studios podcast network. When Keb is not sharing intriguing historical facts, he can be found hosting Unfiltered Sports Weekly, a dynamic podcast that takes you on an unfiltered journey through the world of sports, regardless of whether you are a seasoned fanatic or a newcomer. Keb, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hey, thank you for having me.
So, I gotta tell you, I've talked to some other podcasters before, and we were like, the Stupid History Minute. It's actually the most brilliant thing I've ever seen for a podcast, because it's just unending, and you're not editing 5 hours of material into 1 hour. You just kind of got your little thing going, and then you just go from there. It's kind of awesome. I'm not saying it's easy, but
no, I mean it kind of by design. For the people out there who don't do a podcast, editing's like half the battle. And like from start to finish, I remember one podcaster asked me, I was a guest on his show some time ago, and he was like, look, man, how much time do you spend like editing and stuff like that? And I'm like, from start to finish, including content, it's like 5 minutes, and I was like, I can bust out a month in like 2 hours. And I said, what the hardest part is not if I did like a blooper reel, like getting through it and doing that would probably be more popular than the podcast, but we'd have to rate that R, but yeah, from start to finish, the research on it is what takes the time. That's what takes the time.
I can see that.
But yeah, just looking stuff up, and that's why I only record once a month. It started as a joke. It started as we were doing this show, and it was called the Unfiltered Podcast. That's kind of what derived the Unfiltered Studios Podcast Network. And we were doing that. And if you've listened to that show, which then turned into Refiltered, which then turned into the Unfiltered Sports Weekly, if you listen to that show, what I wanted to do in this medium of podcasting that I love so much is I wanted to do something polar opposite of that. But I wanted it to be funny, but I didn't really care if anybody laughed because I thought it was hilarious. And so what I said, what is the thing? Do you ever really get through a podcast? And I was like, if your friends have it, but I feel like you're listening to a podcast, so you get out of the car, and I read there's a statistic out there that like, something stupid, like 80% of all podcasts are listened to while in the car. And I thought about it. I was like, we got to give somebody no reason not to listen. And the way we do that is we make it short. Good friend of mine named Mark Sluman runs a podcast called the Get Help Dad podcast. It's 5 minutes long. It's just dad jokes and stuff like that. It's not my kind of humor, but he's a cool guy. So, and he had that. And so I was like, okay, we're going to make this a minute long, maybe 90 seconds. We're going to make it a minute long. Let's research how many words you can read in a minute. And I knew I wanted to do history because at the time, this is 3 years ago, at the time, I was listening to a bunch of history podcasts because I have a history background. I love it. I get into everything. I watch documentaries. Me and the guys could have a conversation for days, mainly about American history. Right now, I'm watching a show called Manhunt. It's about the search for John Wilkes Booth. Anyhow, so I knew I wanted to do history, but I was listening to this podcast called Hardcore History. And they were talking for the 9 millionth time about the JFK assassination. How many, what? And so I emailed the guy and I said, you're missing a conspiracy theory. I think Jackie O had him killed. And they're like, what? And I'm like, Jackie O had him killed. No doubt. You could say the mob, CIA, Lyndon Johnson, whatever. Jackie O had him killed. She's tired of him, screwing around.
Banging everybody.
She had him killed, And they're like, that's ridiculous. And I was like, and the earth's flat too. Seriously, for the 9 millionth time, how many times are we going to go? And they always do this. The old history podcasts, they always do this. They announce themselves like, I'm Walter Cronkite, they always do that. So I was like, I'm definitely doing that, and so I'm going to welcome people. I'm going to say my name. Like, you can't get out of an episode without knowing who Keb Pound is, and knowing that I'm him. And my wife goes, well, I got a simple question for you. What are you going to talk about? That's a good question. I don't know. Well, she goes, well, you're going to talk about JFK? No. What are you going to do the history of? I don't know. And so I look over on the kitchen table and there's a blender box, a Ninja blender box. And I said, I'm going to do the history of a blender. And she's like, that's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard of in my life. And I said, and that's going to be episode number 1. And after that, we're going to do balloons. And after that, we're going to do chopsticks. And then like 2 months later, it was only going to be 30 episodes. It was a joke.
Yeah.
It was me making fun of history podcasts.
Yeah.
Right. And after 30, I get like these DMs and like, not like one or two, like 50, going, hey, what's up? You haven't had everything okay? You haven't had a new episode in a while. And these aren't people that listen to Unfiltered. These were people that found it on Good Pods that were looking into history, And I said, why do you like it? And they're like, because one guy literally told me, it's because I can listen to it when I'm backing out of the driveway. I'm like, I said, that's genius. And he goes, I listened to all 30 in a row. And he goes, it is literally, and this is where I got the tagline from. I said, it is literally the most bingeable podcast in the world.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's where I got that tagline from. And I never thought of it like that. And so I talked to Beebs, a friend of ours, and I talked to him, and he was like, oh, man, maybe you got something going here. I don't know. And he's like, but I got one thing to tell you. Take the ads off of it because the ads were longer than the damn content.
Yeah.
And I said, okay, I'll take ads off of it. Podcasting is not a get-rich-quick scheme. It's a get unrich slowly. You don't do this for the money.
You definitely don't.
This is called, like in comedy, paying your dues. This is definitely paying your dues. One of these days, somebody's going to get a big guest that has millions of followers, and they're going to hit or whatever. Maybe I should get a TikTok and put my face on there. I tried, but some people say I'm too old for the TikTok.
Well, I mean, I have a TikTok. I'm sort of there. I'm sort of not. It depends. You know what? It's a lot of work too. It's all right. So having a podcast, I wanted to do it for years. I'd been on other people's podcasts, just friends of mine who did it. I didn't realize what goes into the podcast, right? I thought, the research and stuff is going to be time consuming. I didn't realize the editing process was going to be, especially for someone like me, because I get so crazy. Like my wife will watch me and she could tell I'm just like stuck on one little sound because I'm like in my head, I hear it. No one else is going to hear it, but I hear the little error there. So I didn't realize how daunting that task was going to be. I didn't know anything either. Like I've gotten much better at it, but Jesus, in the beginning, I'm like, what am I doing? If you're looking to get your voice out there, it's a very low feeling to realize how many people are actually listening, at least at first.
Do you remember the first time that you like looked up and you saw like I'm big on, I could care less how many downloads I get a day. Yeah. But what I look is like geolocation, like where are people listening? Do I know in the first time on any podcast? Because before Unfiltered, I had a thing called Keb Unfiltered where it was just me like screaming at the rain. You can't find those episodes anywhere. I deleted them. The second one was entitled Things That Piss Me Off, and I mean, it was basically me trying to figure out this medium, but if you look at the geolocation, remember the first time that you saw somebody that you didn't know that listened to your show and you're like, I've arrived. And I was just like, oh man, that's cool.
How about the first time somebody listens to you out of the country? You're like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Who the hell is listening to me in Egypt? And how?
Right.
Why?
Yeah.
Like, how did they stumble upon that?
Yeah. Unfiltered Sports Weekly is huge in Indonesia.
That's so weird.
Because they care about the NFL over in Indonesia. Yeah. Maybe there are a lot of Seminole fans that are mad Florida State got cut out of the damn college football playoff.
Yeah.
But I get like, if you see like India, those are the famed podcast promoters, which is another thing when you're a podcast host, you got to put up with.
I get a lot of emails, a lot of email messages in it.
They're relentless.
Yeah. You want to get 1,000 ratings today? Like, just like that? All right.
Yeah. Oh, it's $750. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
In the beginning, I was like, any of these legit though? Like, how does this thing work? And then I was like, I knew if I was just trying to get listens that it was the wrong idea. I actually took the tactic. I think I saw it. So it took me a long time to start because like, it just, you are throwing yourself out there. And like you're talking about, you erased a lot of stuff. I tried these things like off the top of my head where I was talking and I would listen. I'm like, you sound like a sociopath. Like you can never release this ever. So, when I do solo stuff, I tend to script it, but I just script it enough where I can kind of talk too. So I can so it doesn't sound like it's scripted, but I'm just not good like that. So But even my first episode, it's like, it was one of my friends, so it's good. He's like kind of saved me, but I remember it starting and I like actually played the intro music and I had nothing to say. Like I was like, hi. And then it was just like, welcome. It was so bad. And I keep it there because like every once in a while I'll throw it on and be like, oh man, you came a long way from that guy. But, I look at it as like, hey, listen, I threw myself out there. And it's definitely like, for me, it's more like, this is just like therapeutic for me, I guess. Bullshitting or getting into deep topics or not deep topics. I just like talking and in different ways to people I would never talk to in my life.
I think it's very therapeutic. I don't know if you listen to Unfiltered Sports Weekly enough to figure out that I have a tad bit of an anger problem, but I get worked up real easily, really quick. And, it's just better that if we all agree that I am right all the time. And it's just better for everybody that way. And once you understand that about Keb, but throwing yourself out there and being therapeutic, I have a bunch of things when I get mad or get down or just feel like I have something to say, I'll throw on Audacity and just hit record and go.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's like my set, let's see if this is funny. I'll shoot it to another comic or something like that. And then they'll be like, no, it's not funny. I'm glad you brought that up. When I talk to other people who are doing stand up, or if I see, a lot of times we used to have this place here called the Hourglass Pub, and it was like a haven it was kind of like our comedy store here in Jacksonville, and anybody could just get up there, just try stand up if you wanted to or whatever. And so a lot of us who had done it before would be in the audience, and yeah, you're telling jokes to a bunch of comics. I mean, it's giving you the opportunity to get stage time, learn how to operate the mic, stuff like that. And I remember very vividly somebody who's not a stand-up comic was sitting next to me, and we were watching the person on stage who was brand new at this. And I don't know if you ever done stand-up, but when you do it seriously, you're going to bomb for about 2 years, until you kind of get your persona and get your shtick, because that's going to change about 9 times. You're going to try it this way, and everybody makes the mistake of trying, including me, make the mistake and try to mimic their favorite comic.
Yeah.
Try to, talk that way. You got to find your own voice. It's very similar to podcasting. It's finding your own voice.
I was thinking that.
This person next to me, we're watching this person on stage, and they're like, man, they're horrible. And I said, you know what? Their material does need work. I will agree with you there, but they had the balls to get up there, and you're sitting in a chair. So somewhere out there about Unfiltered Studios, to where there's a saying that Beeb says it all the time, like, that will help you press record.
Yeah.
Because sometimes that's the most difficult thing to do. Oh, hell, I'm here. I got my microphone. I got my headphones. I got my computer. I paid for Riverside or StreamYard or whatever because somebody told me to, and they didn't tell me Audacity was free. I got a Mac and I got GarageBand, and I'm here and I'm ready. What the fuck am I going to talk about?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And excuse my language.
No, you could you could curse all you want.
Okay. Oh, all right. We're not on Finding Your Way. Just kidding me. But yeah, the hardest thing to get, what do you want to talk about? I can't there are other podcasters that both me and that I talk to on a daily and weekly basis that, we bounce suggestions off because, I mean, look, man, I've got a minute-long podcast about the history of paperclip. Okay. So I get what I'm talking about on that one. And then the other one, it's unfiltered. We don't care about editing. That's why we did it that way. And that podcast was based, me and St. Joe and Beebs used to work together, and we would have these conversations in a parking lot that we were just like, dude, we need to record these. It just clicked. And so we just decided, we got knocked down, drag out arguments. We've made St. Joe hang up. We've had a time to where we had to kind of pause, but it's fun. And we've tried it with other hosts. We've tried it with other people, and it just doesn't work like it does with me and Beebs and St. Joe. But that was derived from us just hitting record on something we were doing already.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about podcasts. It can really be anything. Like, some of my favorite podcasts is when I'm listening and I feel like I'm just hanging out with my friends.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be perfect. I listened to one podcast once where the guy literally had technical difficulty, left it in, and it was just like 2 minutes of nothing happening. I was like, all right, you can edit a little bit. But that's one of the cool things about having a podcast, and people should do it if they have something they just want to talk about. It doesn't hurt to just throw yourself out there and try it.
My daughter was thinking about doing one and talking to me, and she's like, well, how would I get people to listen to it? I'm like, that's the trick. To do this right, I think you have to have a passion for this media. You really do. Because it's not just hit publish and then back off and immediately, in a year, you're going to be Joe Rogan. That's not going to happen. The average indie podcast gets in between 25 and 45 listens per day. And that's a lot.
I read if you can get more than 40 on your episode in a month, right, your newer episode, you're in the top 50%.
If you can get over 450.
Yeah, I think then you're in the top 1% or something, right? And something like that.
The majority of podcasts are weekly. The majority of them are only put one out every day. So, and that was like, I wasn't going to do a minute podcast once a week. That's here's 90 seconds of what a lamp is. And, next week we'll talk about the light bulb, we were going to do that. Yeah. And I say we a lot with the Stupid History Minute. I get people, I'm just a guy on the mic.
Yeah, I do the same thing.
We have people that help us because they're especially with Stupid History Minute, there's a level of research involved. It's just not Googling, stuff like that, because number one, if you take something like that, it's not written for my voice. And number two, we have a list of what we call buzzwords that we put into every script because A, somebody's either mentioned it, or B, we know it annoys a listener. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you one of them, beloved. There's a listener that you and I both know that hates it when I say that. And I say it almost damn near every episode.
I imagine it actually takes quite a bit of time with the research and then to narrow down everything you find into that 1 minute, that's almost like trying to, I don't know, for lack of a better term, like try to come up with a poem or something that just fits this little itty bitty window you have. I imagine that's a big challenge.
So I'm going to take it behind the curtain a little bit. Okay. So taking a bunch of research, we typically have about a page and a half of stuff that we have looked and brought from various sources. Okay. And then I have a program that I bought that you can literally take this information and make it 100 words. And then we take that and make sure my buzzwords are in it and get to my voice. There are many times, I would say about 70% of the time, what's on the page gets ad-libbed.
Yeah.
It's just a guide that goes through there. The fun part is finding the topics. That's the fun part because there have been many times where I'm just walking around the house with a pen and a pad, and be like, oh, cool. There's a bunch of them right there. I haven't done that. At this point, it's very difficult to find one that I haven't done.
Yeah.
Already.
I was imagining that too.
But we got some series starting. July is National Ice Cream Month. So last July, every day, I did the history of a different flavor of ice cream. So at about July 20th, I was getting DMs going, how long is this ice cream shit going to last? And so I was like, do you guys not know that it's National Ice Cream Month? And they're like, no, why didn't you say that at the beginning of this? Like that. And I was like, because you're not the executive producer of this podcast. I'll say what I want. When I sit and record and I'm like, man, it's been 2 hours. It seems like it's been 10 minutes. That's good. But there have been times where, I'm just getting through there, getting through it. And I got to put out an episode because 90 people are going to be like, where's your freaking episode?
Yeah.
But when you're doing stuff that you're interested in learning more about, and just where it's come from seriously a practical joke, making fun of other history podcasts, to be considered a history podcast, I think is freaking hilarious. And to be ranked number one on Good Pots is even more hilarious.
I know. It's amazing, right? So it's like, I had no clue what the hell. I mean, I sketched out what I wanted to do, but I had no clue. That's why I always say, like, take the journey, right? Because that's all this is to me. I don't even know what it's evolved into. I mean, I have a better idea what the show is.
Sure.
But at the end of the day, I remember I was driving myself crazy, and then I saw an interview somewhere. It was actually like Tarantino was on somebody's podcast. Oh, it might have been Howard Stern talking to him on like something. And he said, is it weird when you watch your own movies? I know a lot of directors don't like to watch their own movies because, they think of all the bad stuff. And Tarantino goes, no. I love watching my movies. I love all my movies. And I was like, wow, that's a thing to say. And then he said, I made my movies for me. I wanted to make stuff I enjoyed. He goes, the surprise was that other people liked them just as much. And I was like, that's really good advice. And that's kind of how I've tried to do it. So if I'm interested in stuff, I'll just do that. Or if there's somebody cool that reaches out to me. I mean, I have some cool people who reach out to me, some who aren't as cool, but I have some like salespeople. I'm like, have you listened to my show? It has nothing to do with that. I mean, of course you could, push your stuff, but I have people who are like, I had like one guy write me once. What did he say? Like how he makes like 10 figures, some bullshit. And then he was like, I wonder which Lamborghini I'm going to drive. I'm like, you asshole. Like, did you do any research? I'm not going to do this. Nobody's going to listen to that. Like, that's not what I do. But I just do things that I want. It just said, fuck, if I'm going to put all the time into it, I'm just going to enjoy what the hell I do. And like he said, I'm surprised I have some kind of following with it. And it's like, shit, there's people out there who like it. So, I mean, I did everything wrong too. Like they tell you to pick a topic, stay on that topic. And I was like, I'm too ADHD for that shit.
Yeah. I mean, basically, I have never, unless somebody asked me, I have never told somebody what they should do as the content on their show. You know what I'm saying? Now, have I given pointers how to market, what I think, just through this trial and error? And I'm not the smartest guy, but I will tell you this. I'm driven and when I want something and when I want to figure something out, I'll figure it out. And I'm very driven and I'm very scheduled and I'm very loud and it's very difficult to ignore me. But going back to what you were saying about, content and what you wanted to do and what you wanted to talk about, that is very interesting that you said that because that's like a philosophy of mine in comedy.
Yeah.
Is that when I stopped trying to write material for other people, like to entertain an audience, and I started to write material to entertain myself because I have a background in sales, if you can't tell. And there's an old saying in sales when you first start, I've been doing 25 years. But when you first start, they'll be like, if you don't believe in it, you'll never be able to sell it. Right. That's very true. It's very true. But that's the same thing in comedy. If you don't think the joke is funny, it's not going to be funny. And so what's funny to me is not going to be fun. I went to religious school for 9 years. So yeah, I think religion's hilarious. Not a lot of people share that. And some people, will come up to me like, you're going to hell. I'm like, yeah, I don't care. How do you know? You're just a person like me. Have you been dead before? Just stuff like that. But what's funny to me is not, Trump versus Biden. What's funny to me is, I don't know if this happens to anybody else, but it happens to me almost every night, is that my wife won't ask me a question for like hours, right? And then I'll be like 3/4 asleep and we're watching Jimmy Fallon and now it's a freaking pop quiz, I mean, I was just like, dude. Or my daughter, we're driving down the road and my daughter turns to me and she's like, Dad, I don't think I want to have kids like that. And I'm like, why do you say that? She's like, well, they just seem they're more work than they're worth. And I'm like, yeah, I feel you. And she's like, that's not nice. Just stuff like that. That's funny to me. And personally, at this station in my life, if you will, I really don't care if anybody else finds it funny because I do. And I believe, I'll tell you this, the Stupid History Minute is the first time in any type of entertainment medium that I've ever used my last name. I usually just go by Keb. Been called that since the 9th grade, but that's the first time. I wanted to own it, but I called it, there's a before Keb, after Keb, and after Keb is when I started just trying to entertain myself and believing in what I was writing. The before Keb, I only tell one joke from the before time. One joke that I regularly tell because it's the first joke I ever wrote. And some people think it's insensitive. Some people think it's wrong. Some people think it's funny. I actually didn't write it for the stage. I wrote it on an email, and it was a reply all email. And these people are like, "Dude, that's funny." And some people think it's funny, or you get a weird reaction when you try to tell a joke that's insensitive, but it's not insensitive. I mean, it doesn't mean to be insensitive. I'll just tell you a damn joke.
Yeah, tell me.
So back, this is a long time ago. So you have to update it. So I was talking to a buddy of mine, and I told him to bet on the Yankees-Orioles game. And I was like, it's a lock. Yankees got it. It's a lock. It's a lock. Dude, I'm like, genius. It's a lock. Yankees got it. Orioles won 14-1. So he comes back to me. He's like, look, man, you cost me like $500. I thought you said you were a genius. And I said, number one, he's like, you need to pay me $500. I'm like, I'm not giving you $500. You're stupid enough to listen to me. That's fine. But I am a genius. I am a guaranteed genius. I said, but geniuses are wrong from time to time. Like when I think of a genius, I think of like a brain surgeon or like a rocket scientist, wouldn't you say? You get the whole crowd, going like this. Like a rocket scientist. You think there's a geniuses, right? Everybody's like this. Okay, like the guys that work for NASA, like those guys are geniuses, right? Yeah. The guys who invented the space shuttle, those guys are geniuses, right? Yeah. Well, that thing blew up twice. See, you don't know whether you should laugh or not.
I'm a proponent of laughing. I actually love comedy, more than I think I do. But I grew up listening to George Carlin, all those guys. So, to me, it's such a weird thing now. Like people look at comedians as almost like they don't trust the news. They don't trust this. Like there's literal comedians who tell the news in a funny way. And that's like where Gen Z people gravitate to, right? Like, they're like, comedians are now, well, they've always kind of been, but it's different. Like they're our barometer in society, I think, like for the ridiculousness of it. And that's what I kind of love about them. Now, my wife doesn't like when I start listening to Carlin. She says I get too, I don't know, dour is the word. I always loved the way he saw the world. Sure. And I always tended to kind of look at it from his perspective. Like it's funny, like a lot of the podcasts, I think, I love history and I like a lot of things. And I do political stuff sometimes too, but it's more like, to me, it's more a study in human nature. And I think that's what he did. Like, I'm not really trying to give a message. I'm just kind of like, oh, this is what it is. And this is what happened. And I don't know. I'm not here to change your mind. I'm just telling you. But when Carlin talks, like, I get like, how stupid these people are. It's like, I just get that like vibe. And, I always loved him. And I love some guys that are out there now, like Mark Norman and a couple of these guys. I just think they're just really good, especially now, like everybody's so on edge with what you could say and what you can't. And comedy is great for, I'll even just use a Carlin reference. He said he thinks a comedian should take you to the line and deliberately drag you across it.
Sure.
But there's only certain people who can get away with that, right? Like not everybody can do that and do it well. And those are the guys I really like.
That's like one of my philosophies. I have a joke that I literally have in my phone called the Carlin joke. Mm-hmm. And because I love his outlook on religion.
Yeah.
And of what I love, there are two basic philosophies that I have, three really. And the first one is I think anybody should be able to say anything to anyone at any time as long as it doesn't hurt anybody.
Right.
Number two is if you're one of those people, this is called the Daniel Tosh rule, because I didn't come up with it, but I agree with it totally. If you're one of those people that says that there's not something funny about everything, then we can't be friends. Then you're going to hate me, because I literally think there's something funny about everything. And I'll give you an example. The Carlin joke it's very short. I talk about religion a lot, and I just think it's very funny. the 180 that the Bible takes. Now, whenever you bring up the Bible, especially in Florida or Georgia or South Carolina,
You're a brave
or
man.
Tennessee, people are just like on edge already. I just said Bible. That means I'm about to make fun of it, which I am. But I'm going to point out something that you can't, and this is what Carlin did so well. He's going to point out something that you can't argue with because he's right, and I'm just pointing out a fact. And I'll just be like, the Bible makes no sense. I mean, the first part of it is do what I say or I kill you. And the second part, it's love one another. So people are getting missed messages and you wonder why, I mean, just things like that. I have, for reasons beyond normal understanding, and I know why, but I am surrounded by some people who are either not religious at all or like uber religious. I love it when people tell me that you're going to hell. I love it. I mean, how do you know? You've been there? How do you know? Well, this is what the Bible says. Well, this is also what the Bible says.
Yeah.
I went to religious school for 9 years. I had to do Bible study every day. Do you think I haven't read it? I mean, we me and the Bible, we've met.
Yeah. I went to Catholic school, so they tried to bash that into me. So,
all right. So no more Catholic jokes.
Well, here's my deal, though. Honestly,
Okay.
I've always said this: people get very, very uptight if you make a joke that's religious, and I'm like,
but the point of comedy is to make people uncomfortable.
but not even that. If you believe in God,
Yeah. Okay.
don't you think God has a sense of humor?
I
mean,
look at
you've
the
seen
platypus.
I was just about to say, you've seen the duck-billed platypus.
No, he made New York Mets fans.
Did you study me? I'm a New York Mets fan. I saw you're wearing the Braves hat. I was even going to bring it up. I was like, oh god.
I mean, he made New York Mets fans and Philadelphia Phillies, but the platypus, and he also made Florida State Seminole fans and Oklahoma Sooner fans. So yeah, he's got a sense of humor.
I would think he's got a great sense of humor. I would think he has an amazing sense of humor for some of the things going on. I wonder what Biebs is thinking. Listen to this right now.
Yeah, his head's in his hand. He's just like, okay. I could do anything to shock him anymore. I really don't. I really don't. He's heard the worst. I don't think I could do anything to shock him anymore. Actually, this guy's told me before that, man, you need new material. I'm working on it. I can talk about serial killers if you like. No, I don't want to hear that either. That's just not just Biebs, but you gotta if people are gonna write jokes, I try to write a new joke every day, and that will take up the space on your iPhone. But I look at the world differently than most people, because I'm looking for a punchline all the time, and I would think that most people who call themselves comedians do as well. They just, I don't want to say have a screw loose, but they can filter, because I've been accused of being what they call a rage and fueled comic, and I'd rather channel being pissed about things into comedy than channel them into the forehead of somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, one of my jokes that I tell is that there are a list of people who, if I ever have a terminal illness and I've got like 3 weeks to live, I would go in hiding for those 3 weeks because I'm taking some people with me.
But you're like so like a lot of comedians, what they're great at is observing and like from the outside. That's what I think. And we're talking about Carlin, like he takes the 10,000 yard stare, and what made him great is he was able to divorce himself from it. And I think there's still a lot of comics who were great, but they're still like inside of it, and he could point out ridiculousness everywhere.
Sure.
And I mean, that's what drew me to him, is just like, he would say things and I'm like, he's absolutely right. And I can't believe he just said that out loud. like you think it maybe. And it's like, wow, he had the guts to just fucking say that and not care that he said that.
He did not give a fuck.
He divorced himself from all that stuff. And I wish I could do that a little easier. Sometimes I look at that, I'm like, it'd be a lot easier just to do that. But I think a lot of comics are good at just standing outside of it and just pointing. Because the way we live is like ridiculous in itself, right? It's insane. That's a lot of shit I talk about on this show is just like, we organized horribly as humans. Like, why did we organize this way? And I think that's why I love comedy, though. I love that about it. And I never really said this. I've always wanted to try getting on stage and doing it. I have nothing written. I have ideas. I don't know if I would ever have the guts to do it, though.
Everybody that tells me that, like around here, if they run into me, and I just, you don't go around. I used to when I was younger, but you don't go around going, "Hey, I'm a comic. Hey, I'm a comic. Hey, I'm a comic." But sooner or later, like if you're out with like a group of people and you don't know like everybody, sooner or later somebody's going to be like, "Hey," I'll give you an example. We were in Savannah, Georgia, and we went out to dinner and we're meeting some people up there that we hadn't seen in a while, and we went to a bar that had karaoke. And it just so happened that the guy that was hosting the thing had done a karaoke or done some audio work here at a show that I did. And so he announced over there, "Hey, we've got a stand-up comic in there." And I'm like, "No, we don't." And he's like, "Yeah, we didn't know." Who's here? And these people are like, get up there. Anyhow, inevitably there'll be somebody in the evening be like, I've always wanted to try stand up. And what I always answer is, "I'll get you on stage tonight."
Yeah.
I will get you on stage somewhere tonight. And then they're like, wait. Oh, well, dude, don't say that to somebody like me. I'm a man of action.
Yeah.
Don't say that to somebody like me and think that I'm not going to hold you up to it. If this is something that you want to do, because it's like Yoda told Luke, man, you need to pass on what you have learned.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of deal. We need more.
Which is funny because I also like that he says, "Do or do not. There is no try." Right? Like, so do you want to just do that? Like, just do it or don't. Stop thinking about it. It's like doing the podcast. Same thing.
And even if you fail, the best teacher failure is, the Last Jedi. Yep. So I don't know if you could tell. I'm a huge Star Wars
me
fan.
too. I never get to talk about it on here though.
Dude, we're gonna have like 4 hours.
We could,
Right now, Beebs is like, "Oh, you got him going on Star Wars,"
Yeah.
But I mean, you can learn a lot from the lessons that Star Wars teaches.
Mm-hmm.
It's not just good versus evil, or coming of age story, or there's many themes through it. But in my opinion, Yoda's a great written character. He's the third best written character in my opinion. I think Emperor Palpatine was the first best written character.
Yeah.
In all the movies, he's just got some great lines. But I think Han Solo was a great written character as well. He's got some iconic lines, and I'm not talking about "I know" or anything like that, but I'm talking about he could use a good kiss.
He's so great in that movie.
Just things like this, or even in The Force Awakens when he was like, "This is not how I thought today was going to go."
Yeah.
It's just classic Harrison Ford.
I like when he's just like, "This is not how the Force works. That's not how it works."
Right. He's like that, when he's talking to Finn and he's just like, "Hey, big time," just get, and they're great. My favorite line out of all the movies is, "The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural."
Yeah.
And then like people like, why are you watching? I'm a Braves fan. Why are you watching, a Mets Phillies game? And I'll pull. Well, if one is to understand the great mystery, one must study all of its aspects.
That was me and my friends growing up, and it's like
people would be like, "Shut up!"
It's only like 3 or 4 people in the room getting it.
Yeah, and I'd love to say that it was like when I was growing up, but it was like Tuesday. Yeah. So, there are very few things that have brought me as much joy as Star Wars has. Everybody has like their thing that they're into. Like some people like, Raphael, geeky dad, like, comic books or whatever. I know he's a Star Wars guy too, but I get stupid with it. I will literally new show on Disney Plus, stop what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I've read the books, extended universe books, the Legends books. I think that the only trilogy that they should ever do that they haven't done is the Darth Bane trilogy.
I said, all right, so I'm going to give something away here. So I used to write for like this outlet. I just wrote like Star Wars stuff. And
Cool. Like fan fiction?
No. It was actually like just articles for stuff. And then like,
okay.
you get paid for like how many people. It's like one of those like dime or whatever. And which was cool though, because I got to go to like Comic-Con for free and do stuff. But I went to school. I really wanted to be a journalist and a writer of some kind. And I mean, that's what my monologue is basically, like, just frustrated writer. That's why I do them. You get to write like a cool little thing and hear it,
Sure.
and that's it. But I remember thinking that was safe, writing Star Wars stuff. And I have to tell you, those fans are fucking nuts. The attacks I used to get. And it's kind of funny. Like, people would come to your defense like they knew you. Like, I would read these. After I got over the initial shock. All right. So you like the Last Jedi?
Yes, I know I'm in the minority.
No, because I love the Last
The
Jedi.
reason that I like it is because it's different.
Yes. Thank you.
Okay. I didn't like the B plot, the whole, I didn't care for Leia doing the Mary Poppins thing or anything like that. I didn't care for the B plot. I really liked Crate.
Yes.
The planet.
Thought that was cool.
I will tell you this. I figured out that the first time I saw it, that Luke wasn't there because his boots weren't moving. Salt. I even leaned over to my wife and I'm like, he's not there. He's projecting himself through the Force. And if you pay attention earlier in that movie, when the whole Kylo Ren and Rey thing, they're Force connected or whatever.
Right.
Even Kylo Ren says, you can't be doing this. The attempt alone would kill you. And if you paid attention to that, that's kind of foreshadowing what happens to Luke.
Right.
For doing that. Did we know before that the Force could kill you? No. I mean, we thought Force wielders were, all powerful,
Yeah.
And, but.
So I loved The Last Jedi. I have problems a lot with the sequel trilogy more because it's just disjointed. Like, I don't understand why they didn't have like a total idea what they wanted to do. Whatever.
The problem is they should have gotten the same guy to do all three movies.
Yes. Thank you.
That's the problem with it.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to jack around with the director, it should have got just J.J. Abrams should have done all three.
He could have done all three. He probably would have done a fine, admirable job because he does good setup and stuff like that. I mean, The Force Awakens, I think, is a good setup. I didn't like the last one, but to get off of that for a second, the first thing I ever wrote for that, I wrote something called like The Last Jedi is a beautiful letdown, and what I meant was it was so different, right?
Sure.
Like it wasn't what I expected. The Force Awakens was obviously like a throwback. It was to the fans, They didn't want to do what Lucas did with the prequel trilogy and whatever. They wanted to get Star Wars fans in the seat.
Sure.
And I loved when I saw that movie. I mean, there was a point that when Kylo Ren kills Snoke, I remember I thought to myself, like, I was just in such shock. I was like, is this episode 9? Like, what the hell? Did I miss something? So I wrote this whole thing like about just that it was like a really good movie and trying to explain what I thought of certain elements. And it got a lot of reads because obviously if you say something like that, I didn't mean it to be like a shocking thing to say it that way, but the first comment I see when they posted it, you get like Facebook, they post on Facebook to come read wherever.
Sure.
I still have it somewhere. I kept it because it was one of the greatest things I ever saw. It was like, the guy said something like, you can't force your liberal agenda on us. It's like he's like, this libtard is trying to say, I forget exactly the words, but it's like trying to tell us the new Mad Max is better than the old one. And then he like just took a bunch of shots at me as like a human being. And I was like, you got all that from this fucking article? Like you took out my political stance, the way I live my life, that I'm a manipulative son of a bitch, like all this stuff. I'm like, dude, I just was saying like, I liked it and this is why. It was shocking to me how violent they were. The only one that ever got a lot of love that nobody argued off of, I remember I wrote something saying that the if they really wanted to start over, they should go to the Knights of the Old Republic, because you're not really shitting on, you know, the newer stuff at that point. It's more safe. And there was a lot of people that really liked that. But yeah, I thought it would be safe to write those things. Like, that was my thing. I was getting back into writing and I was like, this is easy for me. I can get into this. It was like, I never took so much abuse in my life.
To tell you another fanatical fan base, because Star Wars fans, it's different. They are fanatical. They are fanatical. I'll tell you about another fanatical fan base that I ran into, and not in the positive light. So May of 21, we're doing Unfiltered, and I say to the guys, hey, I want to have a flat earther on. And so we research and we find this guy who's like the king of the flat earthers. His name is David Weiss. He goes by the moniker Flat Earth Dave. You know, and hey, the episode's still up if you want to go. It is the most listened to episode of the Unfiltered podcast. It has something stupid like 30,000 downloads. I mean, something dumb. You know, it's the #1 episode. Anyhow, so we decided to put the audio version on YouTube. You know, because the distribution service that we use allows you to just put the audio version on YouTube. At the time, it was before you could do the RSS feed. It was before that. So, anyhow, so we put that on there, and then I remember it was like 12 o'clock at night, and like notifications like going off on my phone, and I'm like, what's happening here? It's YouTube. Yeah, it's comment. Now, in this particular episode, we kind of let him say his piece. Mm-hmm. But then we kind of went, you know, it went sideways a little bit. So, because if you're out there and you believe that the earth is flat, you are more than welcome to believe whatever you believe. But I believe you're a fucking idiot.
I can't take you serious.
Yeah. Kyrie and we basically, you know, I'm not saying Neil deGrasse Tyson, he's the man either, because he made Pluto disappear.
Yeah.
So these people, and I'm not talking like 10 comments, thousands of comments that we're the idiots. Okay. Let me explain something to you. It's not that 1 or 2 or 3 scientists believe that the earth is round. All of them believe that the earth is round.
Yeah.
So the onus is not on us to prove that it's round. It's them to prove that it's flat.
Thank you.
But all you're really doing is proving how unintelligent you are, you know. And if you have a problem with me saying that, it's Keb Lives, KEBLIVES. More than welcome to have a discussion on Twitter with me.
But like, what happens when you walk to the end, or it just never ends?
Okay, so there are 3 things that dude, I've gotten into it with the flat earther too in my time. Okay. So there's 3 things that they're all going to tell you. Number 1, there's an ice wall. To answer your question, there's an ice wall, right?
Oh, like Game of Thrones?
Yeah, kind of. But like at the end, like before you fall off, right? There's an ice wall. That's like what Antarctica is. So anytime you see a picture of Antarctica, that's the ice wall, right? So what my question is, why isn't there a cruise to the ice wall? Like there's Alaskan cruises, you know, and there's cruise to Caribbean. Ice wall, that would be pretty popular. Hey, I want to see the ice wall. That's the literal end of the world, right? So, okay, when you run into a flat earther, they're going to, and you're arguing with them to prove that they're right, what they're going to do is they're going to say, hey, do your own research. They always say that. Do your own research.
They do.
And here's a YouTube clip that you can go watch. You know, and I guarantee you, 9 times out of 10, that YouTube clip that is going to be Flat Earth Dave.
Yeah.
You know? And so, anyhow, he doesn't like us. Sorry, you know, we're entertainers, you know, so he didn't care for us. And we weren't even really trying to entertain people. We were just saying, you know, how much idiocy, if that's a word, goes into these conspiracy theories. It's like the birds aren't real people. You know, I mean, you know, there's a mass genocide of all birds during the pandemic, right? When everybody was indoors,
right?
There's a mass genocide of all birds, and now they're drones for the government.
Yeah,
all of them.
Yeah.
Hey, the moon's made out of cheese, or hey, there's Bigfoot. You know, I mean, you know, all pictures from space, those are CGI.
Yeah.
All, you know.
My buddy used to say that too. He's like, he would talk to people like this and he would just be like, that's a big thing to keep together. you don't think somewhere something would unravel? You know what I mean? Like that is a big secret that the world government or whatever is keeping. All this time, they kept it under wraps. I mean, they could hardly get their shit together on any other things, but that they got it. That they can keep under wraps.
So all the scientists,
right?
Think about how many people would have to be. All the teachers, all the people who work for the government, all the people, the governments of the world, right?
The ones who hate each other and bomb each other would have to still be in cahoots together.
So not one of those people, not one, has come out to blow the whistle on the government being in on this flat Earth conspiracy. Not one of them.
Yeah. You know? And what would it serve, though? Like, what would be the reason to keep that from anybody? Like, who gives a shit?
What the problem is that the damn Earth is round, and these people have to be different. You know, no one hugged them when they were children, so they have to be different and come up with these cockamamie conspiracies because they think everybody's lying to them. Now, do I think that the government is honest with you?
No.
Okay, absolutely. And anybody who thinks that the government is totally honest with you, like yeehaw, Trump is going to set us straight. No, he's not. Yeah. Because it's bigger than him.
Right.
I mean, it's bigger than him.
Yeah.
It's a machine at this point. But we need to build a wall. No, we don't. I mean, how about you put the National Guard on the border if you really don't want people to come in? But
I've actually said that
do
before myself.
They're not going to do that.
Yeah, it's very simple. Yeah, I've said
that
myself.
Put like one of the branches of the military down there, and Ron White had a great idea. He thought we should buy Mexico, fix it up, and flip it. That was a great idea, and or move if they bombed Israel, move all the people in Israel and put them in South Florida. Half of their relatives are there anyway. Just stuff like that. But the flat earthers, man, they're fanatical fans. Just the only thing I could compare them to would be the Star Wars guys.
Yeah, you know what? That's a good point. I always think flat earthers wouldn't have survived without the internet. Like I think that's like one of the negatives of the internet to me. And like, well, flat earthers. Like when I was a kid, you heard about this thought process, but you think anybody ever came out and said like, I'm a flat earther. And now it's a huge movement. I'm like, the only way that happens is a bunch of like-minded idiots go on the internet and discuss it.
I always joke with friends of mine that I wonder, because of how gullible people are, wonder if I started like an internet church called the Church of Keb, if people would like donate, and I'll give, hey, what are you going to give a weekly sermon? Oh yeah. I'm giving the weekly sermon, and what is it going to be a church of? Well, see, the church is just, in church by definition, just a meeting place.
Yeah. I had to look it up real quick because you're talking about starting a religion. Did you ever?
No, I didn't say starting.
Well,
a religion.
starting
I
a
said
church.
Starting a church.
Yeah, I don't know if you know this. There was like, is this right? I think it was in Australia. They were trying to do a census or something like that. And, depending on like what's on there, like some of these places get some money or something from whatever. Right. But there was like there was a large contingency of people in Australia who claimed to be Jedi, and it like screwed up the census. It was like enough to mess it up. It was 70,000 people. I mean, not that that's like a million people, but it was enough that they were like, what the fuck? The fuck are these people doing to our census? That I thought was great. It was called the Jedi Census Phenomenon.
That's cool, actually.
I never looked that deep into it. I just remember somebody telling me about that. That's actually very interesting. But
that's funny.
But yeah, it's like, I don't know. These people, but you're right, like the Star Wars fans are probably equal to that.
I think they're fanatics.
So I'm going to stop it here. You get a little taste of what's coming in the next episode. A lot of pop culture, but we also get into Keb's book, The Struggles of Publishing, and just a long conversation about how important the idea of community is within your podcast. I know it's a solo endeavor for some people, but trust me, You get much further when you help bring others along. So thank you again for taking the journey with me today. There'll be more next week. I promise you won't be disappointed. And as always, see you then. I want to thank you for taking some time out of your day today and listening to the show. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you want to learn more about the topics discussed in this episode, check out our show notes at my website, jbergshow.podbean.com. And don't forget to subscribe on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, or wherever you enjoy your favorite podcast so you never miss out. You can also follow us at JBerg Show on Twitter and Instagram and JBerg17 on TikTok for the latest updates and going-ons behind the scenes. If you enjoyed the show, please leave a review. It helps us improve and grow the show, and each and every one of you has such an impact on that, and I can't thank you enough. Join us next time, and remember,
it won't always be a straight line, but take the journey and escape a while for thoughtful excursions into the world of ideas across media, politics, technology, pop culture, and all realms of civic life.
You're listening to the With Jay Berg Show.